Hello, I hope I'm audible now, Margaret. Sorry for that. I was on mute there. So yeah, we have 45 participants in total right now. We're expecting around 30, 40 more, but we'll just wait for a couple of more seconds and then we'll get started. Great. So hello everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We have a great panel with us, and we're sure it would be a lively discussion for all the people who are all the attendees as well. Please, before we get into it, for the attendees, please feel free to drop in any questions or queries that you might have on the comment section on YouTube if you're logging in from there, or on the chat panel if you have logged in through the Zoom link. So yes, so I was just, as part of the preparing for the webinar, I was just looking at some of the stats as of today morning. So in India, we are now very close to the 800K mark on the COVID affected number, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down in the near future. The last quarter was shrouded around the unknown about how long it will be affecting us, how will the future look like, and other stuff. But now it is with more and more information coming in from the healthcare fraternity, we know that it is at least going to stay there for the next couple of quarters, at least till the end of 2020, being optimistic. And that's one of the reasons why employee well-being has now come to the forefront. It has traditionally been a cost center for the HR team and organizations, but now people are now looking at going beyond just insurance, and health benefits cover everything from physical health, nutrition, fitness, mental health, and even financial health for that matter of fact. And all of you being responsible for the human capital, you guys are on the forefront of managing people and taking care of the business as well. So with the new normal of working from home and the restrictions around having no travel, workplaces being shut down, the three major factors that have come to the forefront is the employee well-being, which we just discussed. Second bit is the engagement part, and finally comes the productivity. And these three topics are the crux for the discussion as of today. Our panelists today are Mr. Atma Godara. He is an engineer turned human resource professional with an engineering degree from Punjab Engineering College and master's from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. He has worked as HRBP across a myriad of industries, from startups to conglomerates, and presently he is working with OYO. We also have Priyambi. Ms. Priyambi Malvai has been in various HR leadership roles for around 12 years, and she has led various portfolios ranging from performance management to rewards to HR transformation and operations and compliance and other stuff. Presently, she is working with Times Internet. And finally, we have Ben Sullivan, who is the Sales Director Europe for Zozode, and he's helping organizations and HRs engage their employees through digital rewards and recognition. He has a vast experience at IT organizations like VMware and IBM as well. So welcome all of you to this webinar panel here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great.
Sure.
Welcome. And to just get started, I would like to first pose the first question to you, Priyambi. Like, how do you define well-being for the employees at Times Internet, especially with the new normal that is coming now?
Okay. Thank you, Trilok, for the opportunity to be here with everyone to share a few things that we do. There are a few things that we aspire to do, and also discovering along this journey, which has been very different. It's been unprecedented in many ways, and the kind of stress that has built up, whether it has got to do with financial stress or it's got to do with not having any social connect of any kind. I mean, call this word as social distancing, and or it is pure and simple the stress of work physically or mentally, right? So I think it's unprecedented that all of this has befallen all together on people. And while you've asked me for employees of Times Internet, what I would rather do is to really look at it in general for employees, and then share with you a few things that we do at Times Internet, or other certain ideas that are there. So how do we define well-being? If you look at a person, okay, and especially those who are working, well-being, it's a full myriad of things that really covers the well-being of a person. Now, typically up until now, what we've been doing is we've been saying well-being has three aspects. Okay, one is physical, one is mental or emotional or psychological, whatever one might want to call it, and the third is financial. But with this, these last 4 months have opened up a new paradigm for us, because what's happened is we've realized that social well-being is also something that's important. As work is coming to home, literally now, we've been working from home and working for home as well together. Like everyone's, uh, doing this dual responsibility, homework, all of it together. And there is really no boundary between where does work stop or begin, and where does home begin or stop. This brings us to that social bit of it, where even though we are disconnected literally from people physically, yeah, we're trying to connect virtually to everyone. And I'm saying trying to connect because it's really work that's happening here. Are we really connecting socially? So when we are going to an organization, right, Trilok, we actually, when we go there, we don't, we are not just fulfilled because of the work. We are fulfilled because of the culture that is there. We're fulfilled because you've got friends at work. We get fulfilled because people understand what's happening at the same stress level that we have. But being cooped up in your own home environments and trying to work this out day in, day out, it's a different ballgame altogether, because you're not able to share everything the way you used to, right? And as I shared with you, Trilok, earlier as well, while we brought work home, I'm not sure if we brought the organization home. Did we bring our friends at work home? We haven't. So that's what has brought up another dimension. And I'm again saying not at Times Internet, but because I am at Times Internet during this time, yes, for sure, for Times Internet employees. So those are the four things that I would say get included in well-being, and questions that we've had over these 4 or 5 months of lockdown.
Great, great. Very insightful about bringing in the social well-being aspect as well here. So, following up to that, Ben, wanted to get that outside-in perspective from you as well, right? Being in the European countries, we know that you guys are a little bit ahead in the COVID curve right now compared to what India is as of now. So, would you share any experiences about how organizations there are looking to engage their employees?
Sure. First of all, I guess it might be a little bit important to set the scene here. In many countries, restrictions have been lifted, and people who can, nevertheless, people who can work from home are being encouraged to continue working from home. So many of the issues that were called out by Priamba are very real in terms of mental, physical, financial, and social wellness. Engagement is a let's call it an older topic, but let's look at what changed. On reflection, now that we look back, over the last 3 or 4 months, I think what we're learning is that engagement used to be about principally be about retention of employees and productivity, but what's transpired is in the near term, at least, engagement has taken on a new meaning for HR and for business leaders, and it's really switched to managing this problem of remote working, but also critically, the employees' own well-being, driven by safety concerns and anxiety. So that's really what bubbles up for engagement motivations that we are seeing, and at the leadership level. And then it's it's interesting to look at how organizations are following through on that engagement. What is interesting and most prevalent there, as with all problems, is a problem well approached is a problem that is first of all measured. Okay, so it's kind of clear to me and to us that the most sort of agile, people-centric companies, quickly adopted surveys. They either took out the old annual survey or ran ad hoc homegrown surveys or initiated a pulse survey, essentially to measure the problem. Really around the March-April timeframe when everybody was just trying to understand what was going on. These have proved very powerful, and there are many available now, even on the internet. Many results are shared, and give us a good measure of employee wellness in particular. It's interesting there to see that the take up for surveys has been very high as an engagement tool. They are leaders are no longer really dependent on the sort of expensive specialist survey utility conducted by a consultancy firm. Many are available as standalone SaaS products, or can be or found inside the best of engagement platforms. But I think what's interesting there is, from an engagement perspective, is this really is empowering the employee. Remember, employees are scattered across kitchen tables and spare bedrooms, etc. Surveys are giving them a voice. Even the quietest employee in the organization now has an equal voice, and in many cases an anonymous voice, to feed back to leadership what the issues are. And as I said, this feedback is often anonymous. So, organizations exhibiting best practices here are measuring where their employees are at, and then critically following through with relevant solutions. So that's what I've seen as a great first step in this new normal. Other employees who are moving, or employers who are moving quickly, are we're quick to respond there with creative actions like deploying stipends for work from home equipment to take away these new stresses, deploying thank you gifts, deploying gifts for, in a second wave, if you like, gifts for the kids at home, in terms of arts materials, or shall we say media streaming and so on. So there were some early and creative sort of reactions to this issue of new stresses at home. Motivations, engagement is all about motivation, of course, and to that end, many organizations have had to change strategies, or working on new business models, maybe have to underline and preserve the culture that has made them successful to date. So we're seeing a sort of significant step up there as well in appreciation and social recognition of behaviors, monetary and non-monetary, through whatever electronic media that organizations have. And then I guess finally and relevant today, wellness has, in general, has bubbled right to the top, and of course wellness well done creates a great place to work in the mind of employees, and ultimately drives productivity, etc. It's every day I'm seeing something really exciting and creative, from initiated by employees inside our own company, and inside the company of others, towards the dimensions, that the elements that Priyamma called out. And it's gone all the way to really creative, gamified wellness apps that include a rewarding element to drive, say, drive team competitions that get everybody talking about, how many liters of water they drank, or how many times they brushed their teeth, or how many squats they did, anything that improves their physical wellness, for example. So it's a very dynamic time for engagements, strategies, and there are many creative things going on that I must say can only be having a positive impact. Trying to establish these great places to, that go some step towards retaining, good places to work and establishing great places to work.
Very interesting. You mentioned about the small challenges, right? An example of that is a client of ours. They're running something called a stepathon starting from the 1st of July, where all their employees, they're creating teams among themselves and keeping track of how many steps they're walking together. Because one interesting fact that we saw across a couple of corporates was that the users' BMI has increased over the last couple of months, because sitting at home working, it's very easy to start munching on some snacks, not having enough exercises and all of that, because of which there is a higher interest in getting physically fit as well. So that's a good point that you brought in there, Ben. Atma, a question for you here. Something moving to the third paradigm of it, since you are from the industry of travel and hospitality, which is taken a setback because of the COVID coming in. How are you guys managing the employees' engagement, the productivity factor, and the other operation side of it?
Sure. Thanks, Trilok. So, as you rightly pointed out, that being in the hospitality industry, we have been hit really hard. If you read, all these news about OYO, what things we have been doing so far. If you read about Airbnb, and you read about the aggregator also, the OTA platforms like GoIBibo or Make My Trip, everybody is going through a new transition altogether. So, in these circumstances, when initially it started happening, we thought it will be for a very short duration. So we have taken up the steps which almost every organization have taken up, that there was a temporary pay cut, there was a delay in increment in the bonuses, and but now we have pretty much, if I talk about only in India, we have been home for 4 months, and it seems highly unlikely for next at least 5 to 6 months things won't get back to the normal. And if I talk about this travel as such, it might take a year or more than that, right? If I'm being really hopeful here, it will take a year or so. Having said that, if I talk about productivity, engagement, or say other operations, so I will pick up the productivity piece first. So here, I have been mentoring startups, also startups which are in early stage, seed funding in A series, and most of the people or the founders who have come to me, that like, hey, all these people are working from home, and I'm not really sure whether they're working or not. I'm not able to measure the productivity. So I have come across these unique solutions from my friends in North America, that you have to spend like 8 hours in front of the camera while you are working, or you have to log in. And I was talking to this friend of mine. He is a consultant, and they were pitching this solution to one of their clients, that we have this logging solution which takes half an hour effectively in the entire day, where the employee have to put in the login hours and log off hours. So like I had to do the login log of like 15 times a day. So I had a conversation with this friend that, why are you going and pitching this solution to one of the client? Client might have a requirement, but in this situation, as an industry, as an employer, as a, I would say the guardian of the productivity or culture, we have to come together and talk about these things. So as I was talking to you the other day, in Oyo we have very very quantitative measurement that if you're working in the business development team, one of the major one of the biggest team we have across the globe. So the parameters are very simple, that how many property do you have discussion and how many properties you have converted on the Oyo on the Oyo role per se. But say in this pandemic, if I go by the same parameter, this is totally illogical, right? Having said that, probably we have defined some sort of parameters which are easy to achieve. For example, for the BD team, the parameter for them is to know, are they keeping their partners engaged? Are they making them the regular calls? It's a very simple parameter which employee can measure or can monitor themselves, and also the teams can effectively measure this thing. So tweaking this thing, if I talk about say finance, HR, technology team, or say revenue management, these teams are pretty much doing the same thing what they were doing from the office. So for them it has not changed much. That brings me to the second point, what you raised, engagement. See, PMB said a very beautiful thing, that hey, we don't go to the office for work, we go to the office for culture, for those other activities, to meet people, to talk people, to have that sense of the office. She rightly said it that she also mentioned that we are not only working from home, but rather we are living at work now. So again, I'll quote you another example. This friend of mine, he's again a consultant, because I'm again quoting consultants again and again, because they are in this beautiful industry where if the business is running, they are getting the businesses. This person, he was having a con call, and one of his boss was presenting this PPT, and his partner was also there. And suddenly his wife comes with the kid, boss wife, and give the kid that, hey, take care of the kid. And this kid is crying, and this guy is giving the presentation. The partner gets irritated after 15 minutes. It's like, hey, can you take over the presentation? And when he told this thing, I was a little perturbed for a while. I was like, when do we make it normalize? When do when do you do this thing? So I have seen my teams, which they have been working across in Oyo itself. I know that when I talk to some of my colleagues, they know what is the name of the pet in their colleague's house, right? How many members are there? So I have this colleague. Whenever I have this call, her son always makes sure he comes on the screen and make those faces. So I remember one day when we were having this call, her son was not there. So I asked, hey, where is your son? I'm missing him today. How do you make it more inclusive? Space is like, in a way, I was reading an article, it's very beautiful. It talks about that, it is not office, but we are intruding into someone's home. It's a private space, it's a personal space. We are intruding there because of the work. So we need to, it's not our right to, so it's not my right to intrude into your personal life. You're sitting at home. Rather, I make it, so I take it as something, what do you call it, that, hey, you've given me this opportunity, so I will respect this opportunity, what you've given to me. So what we have kept all the brown bag sessions, we have taken them offline. Teams are talking to each other more and more. What you just quoted about that, how the people are measuring their BMI and they are taking the steps and everything. So these steps, I think, pretty much are picking up. But I want to just leave with one thought here, that I have been speaking a lot with my friends and colleagues and mentors and across the globe, not only in India, and people are really stressful in these times. These are not normal times. As Priyanka again mentioned, that social wellness, people are not able to step out, and they are going through this different kind of stress altogether, where job certainty is not there, pay cuts are there, lots of work is there, and people are working from home, and there's lots of work at home also, right? Managing parents, managing kids. So these are really difficult times. And if we talk more about what we're talking about today, which is a very relevant topic, I think it makes more sense to us, rather than we focus on the productivity or sustainability. I think those things will automatically come along with us.
Great. Thanks. Thanks there, Atma. Priyambi, you were seeing something in the well-being space around the engagement bit as well. You have something to add from your experience?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much, Atma, for bringing in a lot of these points that are very real. They're day to day and extremely real. And we all know that what we'll be doing very soon, very soon, is making it the new normal. Which means we got to kind of be okay about certain of these things. We got to make certain practices as normal and part of day-to-day work life and part of day-to-day home organization culture, right? So what are those things that we can do? Because very soon we will probably end up saying that 30% of my workforce or 50% of my workforce or 70% of my workforce, it makes sense for them to work from home. We are the country's largest digital organization. We've got some 30 brands with us, okay? And we are in businesses that are news business, restaurant, food tech, sports tech, like just name it, probably we are there in all technology businesses, right? And we have, again, a varied employee base, from very young creative guys who are making films and they're anchors, right up till people who are actually, writing articles or are in the financial tech domain, which are slightly, again, very different mindset. So there's a huge mindset that we need to manage. But the good part is that at the end of the day, all of us are human beings. So we all need that social connect. We all need what Atma just mentioned, competitions, which are more collaborative now, not competitions, but really collaborations where you suddenly start feeling there's a team that's coming up, right? What we're missing in the organization. So so to come to the point, in Times Internet, when you would ask me how do you define well-being in Times Internet? It's the definition I did share. Okay, I'd also like to share what is it that we're really doing in each of that space, right? So physical, for example, for us, we've before anything else, I think the umbrella that we call is wellness at work. So there's something called wellness at work. That's the term that's coined for the group. And under wellness at work, there are all these dimensions. And now the social dimension is not formally in that wellness at work, but we're very much realizing that it needs to be part of that. We need to make certain practices very normal in our day-to-day way of working. So when it comes to, let's say, physical or mental or psychological space, there are 2-3 things that we do, which I think a lot of organizations had been doing earlier as well, but I think it makes more sense now to talk about it. So, for example, exercises or physical sessions, all those were fine. But what we've added, and which we already had, something called Vardhan. Vardhan is our partner on this, which is on pain management, for example. Now, what we've done is, as we are sitting, our homes are not designed for working, right? So ergonomically, we are not designed for this, which would mean that we're getting stressed physically. Yeah. So now we have regular sessions on actually how we can use what is at home in a proper manner and be responsible for our health as we work and we contribute to the organization. The organization wants to contribute like that, where regularly we have basic sessions, advanced sessions. If you have a chair, what do you do? If you have a table, what do you do? If you have a stool, how do you sit? And it's very basic stuff, okay? But it has been so impactful because people have really benefited. Everyone doesn't have a work table. Today, I'm sitting on a dining table. If you were to this is my drawing room, right? And that's how I'm sometimes here, sometimes in some other room. But I now know how to sit so that I am responsible for my health. The second thing is that to extend this socially into my family, right? So these sessions are not just for me as an employee. Actually, anyone in my family, not just ergonomical sessions, but in general, pain management therapy that we do. This has been there earlier, but now it's become virtual for us, where people can actually take appointments, your parents especially, because you can't go anywhere anymore now, right? You'd rather not go to the hospital today for anything, right? So we end up doing this at home now. We have, of course, on-call doctors, which I think a lot of organizations have started to do, and you may have heard about it in a lot of webinars. I don't want to repeat that, but I'm just going to take up what we're doing slightly more differently, possibly than a few others. We, of course, have mental wellness sessions, but along with that, again, to bring the social thing back, we have sessions for parenting, for example. How do I ensure now my son is not going to school, so he also has his own stress, and I have to manage his studies too at home, right? So I'm a teacher too at home, like full-time teacher at home now. Yeah. So those are things that come up, and till now we've been taking, honestly, I had been taking parenting as very, very, day to day. Like it was all organized. My housework, so the school organizes 2/3 of my son's day. Now I need to do it. So sessions on that. How do I organize my day? What can I do? How do I organize elderly care at home? So that's where the social aspect on a very, we're bringing that up in all our conversations. Another thing that we're doing is that also, because we are a central team, but we have about 30 plus brands and 25 plus BUs under it. Every BU has its own culture, as I said, right? Age groups, etc. So all of them are doing certain group specific things. For example, one thing that is pretty much common across is where they're having Fridays. They're using Fridays, or some other companies are, some other BUs are using it differently, mid of the week sometimes, but mostly Fridays are being used as days which are slightly less heavy on you. Yeah, and then there are family connects that happen. So within team, we get to interact with each other as families, my son interacting with someone else, and so on and so forth. So those are things that are stress relievers. Of course, to be honest, I don't think we set time limits that after this time, no calls. That hasn't happened because there's no drawing line today. So that's something that we don't have at the moment. But yes, those are things that we'd like to do. The other thing that we've done is that till now, all our birthday messages, etc., were always celebrated. Yeah. So now we've started sending out birthday messages to even the families, including them in it, with with all of so this, for example, one of the BUs celebrated their company anniversary, and when they celebrated the company anniversary, they sent thank you letters to the families, that it's because of you that we are able to have our 8th anniversary, that you've supported. Nice. So these are things that are being done slightly more sensitively. We're sensitive to it, and that's the reason we're doing it. The one thing that has come up really is, when we connected, Ben, you had mentioned something which is, which an angle that you haven't brought in your conversation here, but in our previous conversation, which I really loved. Okay, and this is something which is, what is my spectrum, right? So social can even mean environmental, for example, right? So those are things that I think thoughts that we'd like to work on to ensure that we are more responsible for environmentally, for our families, for ourselves, and for our colleagues as we contribute to the organization. So those are a few things that we do. There's a campaign called One Good Thing that we initiated right in the beginning of the lockdown, where we allowed everyone to have a virtual lounge where everyone wrote, not everyone, whoever wished to, one good thing that they did every day. And it brought out so many talents, like, someone is actually caring for pets. So that he's a pet lover now, right? There are people who are playing a guitar, people who are singing with their parents, people who are taking out covers. And you suddenly realize that, there's so much more to a person than just, so in a way, it's been a silver lining. If we are able to, that's where we are. This is the inflection point for us, that we are able to discover through this dark cloud, we're able to discover what's available for us. And now is the time where we're actually working on a back-end framework, like a work from home framework, on what can we do, changing our policies, changing things, because we know this is going to become a new normal. So that's the background work we've already started doing for the last 1 month or so. And I hope to take away a lot from you all today for that framework as well. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
The family aspect that you brought in reminds me of one of the things that, so basically a little bit about background about Care started when our founders, Kiran, was in the US and was facing problems to take care of his parents back here in India. And that's where the idea came in about storing all the medical health records at one single place so that the entire family can access that. And though we moved into the B2B space, we still hold on to that same core ethos of an employee being able to add his or her dependents as well, and taking care of their health also. Since the COVID lockdown started, we have seen a tremendous jump in the telemedicine, the doctor consultations that are taking place for the family members as well. For example, for me, my wife, we are expecting right now sometime in the month of September, October. So it becomes so easy for me to just chat with a doctor on the phone directly. And that brings in that aspect of not taking the coverage for the entire family as well. That brings in a lot of help for the employees also. And adding on to the point which Atma had also mentioned before around activities and events for the employees. One bit which we noticed was the personalization bit for every individual, like how each one defines wellness, well-being, engagement is very different from everyone else, right? We break our employee base into a couple of segments. Which the first one is what we call it as the invincibles. These are the young guys less than in the age group of 20, 25, less than 30 age group. They have this feeling, man, nothing will happen to me. They are more into fitness, they are more into nutrition, but maybe in the last 6 months, they might have never visited a doctor, they might have not visited a pharmacy or anything like that. The second segment is what we call it as the first responders. These are people who are recently married, who might have just had a kid, or who might have seen an incident in their relatives, maybe parents, grandparents, and others. They have that feeling, oh, what if something happens to me? Their reaction to this entire health scenario is very different. They are more into taking care of themselves. They are more into taking care of preventive health checkups, preventive doctor consultations, ordering medications for their family members and other stuff. Whereas the third segment is what we call it as the chronic users. These are people who are down, like they know that they have diabetes or they know that they have hypertension and other health issues. They are more into the financial aspect of it, where they want to save money. They know that they have their monthly expenditure into medications and everything else. They look at taking care of that aspect of their life as well. So these are some of the segmentations that we do to our clients and engage those people in that aspect. So that was something that you had brought in around family members and other things. So I thought I'll add in that. While Priyambi, you mentioned around, Priyambi, while you mentioned around the different cultures across different organizations, Atma, I want you to pitch in a little bit here. Since OYO has now moved into different geographies as well, different countries also, I'm sure the culture and organizational beliefs would be very different across different geographies. How does that get impacted in the present scenario, and how are you managing those aspects as well?
Sure, Trilok. So I will just cover this culture piece. I mean, it is very, very interesting, and I've been to multiple forums prior to the lockdown, and during this lockdown also, people talk a lot about culture and how does it look like. So one of the learning what I had after I have joined OYO, and prior to this, I was working with Grey Orange, which is a US-based robotics firm, and prior to that, I was at Reliance Industries. So what I've seen these big firms, so let's start from the beginning. When OYO was in 2013, at that point of time, the culture is predominantly what the founder is, right? Everybody will imitate the founder. Like when you have a team of 10, 20, 100, 200 odd people. Once you start growing more than 500 and odd, then this things gets bifurcated. And countries it's a big thing. I will talk about a specific one office. Let's talk about one corporate office here in Gurgaon. Every team will have a different culture, I think, and this is applicable to all the organizations. I mean, culture is for me. So I'm working in digital transformation team. For me, the culture, what I define for OYO is how the global CHRO is, how the country CHROs and the country HR heads are for me, and what kind of their transformation lead for each of these countries. So culture is again is a micro concept. We cannot ever talk about at a macro level. What we can talk about at a macro level is, the ethos of the organization, the values of the organization. Are these similar? I mean, for example, in OYO, we always say that it is still day zero. So we have to have that aggression when it comes to the work. That when we call our people OYOpreneurs, not employees. So do you have that ownership mindset? And right, and third is like, anyone can ask anything. So I can right now, while sitting this conversation, I can drop a WhatsApp message to Ritesh also that, hey Ritesh, this is what I'm facing. So I think these are the ethos of the organizations which are true to every geography, be it India or Vietnam or Canada or Spain or the entity what we have acquired across Europe and other geographies also, be it Latin America. But if I talk about culture, I mean, you will find it very different. I mean, to say physical aspects are very similar. Will have the same logo, same chairs, same design, because we have a global design team. So physical infrastructure exactly would look like the same. But again, the culture is, as I talked about in the beginning also, it is more about how this team is structured, how the manager is behaving. But art, and as a global, say, I'm not part of the global culture team, but as a part of the global culture team, if I would have been in that team, my task would have been to make sure that are people following the same ethos, do they have the same values, and if is everyone working for the same common mission. This is what I believe.
Great, great. Thanks, Atma, for that insight. We have a question that has come in from Manan Sharma from the audience. And by the way, before we just pick it up, we are almost at the 45-minute mark. So attendees, participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to just type it into the chat box below, and we'll pick it up. Yeah, so the question, and let anybody answer it here, which is, how has the psychological impact of layoffs and salary cuts been mitigated for the employees and the ex-employees?
Yeah, so
I know it is a little bit of a touchy topic and amongst employees and in the community as well, but yeah, I'll let you guys pick that one up.
Yeah, sure. So to be honest, right, this is a time, and the one thing that I mentioned right at the beginning was financial stress, and that is really coming from the economic slowdown that's been there, and then it's the domino effect it's had on every organization and then onto every employee, literally. Right. So for some employees, it has been drastic, wherein either they've been laid off or heavy pay cuts, or for a few of them, it might have been that their variable pay has not been paid, or some portion of their salary has not come to them the way it used to come to them earlier. Right. And it's not easy, because we don't live in a, while traditionally India has been a very savings economy, in the last few 10, 12 years, we've actually become more of a consumer economy. And we've had our habits built over these 10, 15 years, and we pretty much live our life on EMIs now. Right. And so financial stress comes to the fore now, to the point of layoff. Right. I think organizations, especially at Times Internet, we've had our share of layoffs. These are muted topics at best, not very openly discussed, but it's it is communicated. Now, considering that we have many BUs at the central level, what is coming down from the CEO has mattered. That's where it has mattered, wherein when we began, we never began with layoffs. Neither was the intention, because we had no clue where we were going, how the market is going to open or close, or what will we do about it. We had no clue whether we are going to come out of the situation after a quarter, after 2 quarters, after 3 quarters, after 18 months. We have no clue at all. Okay. And that being in that space of we don't know, right, and accepting that, guys, really, even we don't know what's going to happen, and being vulnerable to that and expressing that emotion by itself at the leadership level has helped. Because if your leaders are unsure and they're saying that, guys, we are here for you, okay, but we don't know where this is going right now, and we will be there for you. So that's the first communication that has happened. And at BU level, every BU level, because it's for us, it's too far and widespread out. So if the CEO says something, one of our BUs is doing very well, the other BU is not doing very well. They are in different spaces, right? So every BU communication has to be different, and then the BU head takes up that communication with whatever works for that BU, right? So we began with very clear communication from our CEO, group CEO, that we are not looking at layoffs. That's the last measure that we will look at, and for that, we will together have to go for some sort of pay adjustments that we need to do. Yeah, and as and when things become better, we will restore. Things will become worse, we will communicate. We will do what we have to do. But for we will not go in for the layoffs. As situation worsen, because you see, we depend on ad revenues. Yeah, we depend on advertisement revenues. Yeah, and ad sales hasn't been that great in the last few months, and it is very clear to everybody. So the second thing is communicating the actual situation, whatever it is today. Okay, so when the layoff really happened, okay, the layoff survivors, they already knew that this is a journey which is up and down. They're already built into their heads, everybody, that we don't know where we are. But we've got to do our job well to be able to contribute enough. Okay. So as I said, that the handling was not at the time of layoff. We need to be careful. Okay, it's not layoff. After layoff, you start handling layoff survivors. No, it is a journey that you got to take together over these, right from day one to day when the layoff happened and later. That's how you can handle it. That's how we've handled it. And by the way, the ownership has not been HRs. The ownership has been the BU heads, the managers, taking care of their people at the team level. So all team stand-ups that are happening everywhere, you engaging them, you're sharing what's happening. Those who've been laid off have been laid off, right? With proper, whatever was required to be done for them, giving them appropriate notice, giving them appropriate remuneration, whatever was required, right? Those who've not been laid off, we cannot say that, sorry, boss, we don't know whether you'll be laid off or not. That's not the, but we are there at every point in time. And then it's about your intent. So when is it that we start to restore our salaries? When is it that we start to repay our variable pay? Also shows a graph that is slowly moving up. And that's what we are hoping to start showing sooner than later. Trilok.
Got it.
So there's no one solution to it, but it's got to be, you've got to be in the person's shoes, literally. It may sound very touchy-feely and nothing measurable, but let me tell you, that is how it is.
Right. Got it. Yeah. Atma, you wanted to add anything there?
Sure. I think Priyambi has covered very beautifully all the points. I will quickly take a few seconds. We would listen to Ben's points also, because that would be interesting how things are happening in the other part of the world. I think quickly we'll summarize rather what Priyambi has said. Sorry, I just picked up the wrong spelling of her name. I'm sorry here. Okay. So I think first thing what she rightly said is communication is very, very important. I mean, being in hospitality, we were hit really hard, and we told our all employees that see that we can't pay you, and it is very natural. We have to take pay cuts. So that was the first thing which was happened. Then we have studied all the roles, and we have come up with this thing that, hey, some of the roles are the roles which we need to get, we need to keep them on hold, because again, we can't pay. There's no money to be paid, right? Because there's no business. I mean, if I talk about India, right now we are at what, 8 to 10% of the business what we had pre-COVID. So, and people have been sent on furloughs. When I say furloughs, people were, they were not asked to leave, because that is something which would have been the disasters in this market. And especially in Indian market, people call it a stigma that, hey, you have been laid off, but it wasn't a performance issue. And I think the third thing which I will cover, that as and when it happens, we say rollback of the pay cuts or the, variable pay or the increments, clear lines have to be communicated, which again Priyambi has mentioned in the beginning. I think this is what I wanted to say, what we have done at OYO also. So over to Ben.
You're muted, Ben.
Apologies, my apologies. Not much to add there. Communication is key, of course, but communication tend to be time-based events. Town hall meeting, a leader's email, etc., etc. I think what's really important is to open up communication and keep it open the other way, in a measured way, and in a way that has no friction. So I go back to the point that I made earlier. This is a very dynamic situation, and for my part at our own company, we're frequently surveyed. We're frequently surveyed on wellness, and we're frequently pulse surveyed also for our attitudes towards leadership, the business, etc., etc. Ultimately ultimately measuring a net promoter score. But nevertheless, back to to the question on mitigating mitigating the concerns of the. Thank you. I can't find the question. So mitigating the psychological concerns. Many companies, of course, and in India, I'm sure also have EAP programs, but it's clear to me there are more and more mobile apps and wellness companies that are surfacing new ways of enabling the communication, persistent and constant and anonymous communication, the other way for analysis and for insight. And again, going back to I won't name all the companies on these great places to work lists, but they have they all have this in common, and in building this environment of trust and giving employees the opportunity to address these things persistently and upfront in anonymous ways. I'm sure it helps deal with the anxiety and improves wellness, in all its dimensions.
Well pointed there, Ben, around the EAP services, the employee assistance programs. But then that goes in line with what Atma and Priyambi mentioned, right? The communications are supposed to be open throughout the time and not just when the activity happens. EAP is something what we also provide as part of the eKincare Health Benefits package. And we have seen lately, on an average, the utilization percentages of the EAP services are usually on the lower end of the stick compared to the other benefits, which range anywhere between 5 to 6% of the total employee base. But recently, during the COVID times, it has now jumped up, almost reaching double of that utilization, ranging around 8 to 10%. It is also about the additional, while point A is the additional stress that is going around and people having the additional burden of managing or the work from home and the other calamity side of it. But then the other point is also to note is that people, the present generation, are now more open to start talking about these things and not just push it under the rug. They are more open and forthcoming to have that conversation with experts. And as it is said, right, the first step of solving a problem is to actually identifying and accepting that it is a problem. And the conversations are now happening. So that's a good aspect there.
Sorry, Sulok, I just can't not actually acknowledge Ben here. I did message, but then I think what the point that Ben has made, and he made this earlier as well, that there's an equal and anonymous voice now. He made it in his first, the question that he answered, and I think that's phenomenal. It's always all about two-way communication. I didn't want that point to die out. That's the reason I'm reiterating that point what Ben has made. It's like superb as a point. We've got Amber, and I'm sure a lot of organizations have this AI or some other tool to get this anonymous feedback. And I think a lot of what we do depends on that. And thanks for bringing it to the fore, Ben. I think it's critical. It's not a one-way top-down communication. That helps.
Great. Great. Thank you. We are almost 3 minutes to the top of the hour here. So just if there are, again, calling out to the audience, if you guys have any questions, thanks, Madan. Thanks for the compliment there around. Madan says that thank you for the super reviews, which were very candid and for not cutting any corners here. Thanks, Madan, for that feedback. And
some question that is there that has come up.
Just looking at it.
This question for Priyambi. Okay, so I'm not sure if there's time enough to answer. Maybe I could just answer it later, and you could share it with the concerned person, right?
Sure. If I think the person has sent the question to you, you can feel free to pick it up if you want to answer it now. Otherwise, we can.
Okay, then let me take a minute to kind of answer this in that case. So the question is, as work from home becomes the new normal, with every possibility of it staying much longer than expected, is it going to eventually take a toll on the mental well-being of an employee? because working from the office allows employees to socialize with others, something the current situation does not allow. I think absolutely we've raised this. This is something that we discussed in depth out here, which is why when we are looking at the new normal, we've got to have, we've got to include social well-being as part of a practice and not just a one-off affair that we do. Because the moment you're going to have a 50% workforce or 30% workforce all working from home, by then the practices, what constitutes respect? Atma mentioned that, right? What is respect? We are, instead of intruding into your home territory, can we respect that aspect of it and really see the human for a human as an organization and not just work for a work and professional? And that's why, and so to make it a culture, it has to be brought in as a practice. Can't be a policy. It has to be a practice. And it has, so definitely to answer the question, yes, it can impact strongly over a period of time. And as Trilok has already mentioned, I think the EAP usage has gone up, which already indicates, right? But then the possibility is there. Okay, so we need to kind of, we're already seeing it as per Trilok's numbers. We got to work to ensure it becomes a practice to have social well-being part of it, not just mental, psychological well-being, because rest everything contributes to the psychological well-being. That's it. Right. Yeah. Thanks.
Great. Thanks.
I hope I could answer. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
I would add something to that, yes. Trilok. I think, the another answer to the question is we don't really know, right? We don't really know if mental well-being degrades with more and more isolation. We can all guess that it does, right? But what I would say to that person, no matter what size the organization is, 20, 50, 5,000, I would say measure it today scientifically and keep measuring it inside the workforce in order to surface if there's an improvement or a degradation, whatever the reactions are from either HR or leadership. But my key point would be start measuring it today and let us know.
Perfect. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, we are actually 1 minute over the timeline, but yeah, just summing up the conversation, guys. Quick key takeaways, or even it could even be questions, right? Like as Ben mentioned, there are some things that we don't know. What do you guys think, one by one, just going around the panelists to ask, what do you think should be the key takeaway that the attendees should take away with them today? We'll start with you, Ben.
I would say one thing I didn't mention earlier is acknowledge that stress is the dominant feeling amongst employees right now for multiple reasons that we discussed. Consider how much of that stress is being generated from the company leadership itself with unrealistic expectations of productivity in remote environments. Versus all of the other things that are going on. I would say that for number one. I would say number two, acknowledge that it's difficult. Continue to appreciate and recognize the contribution of the human beings, the people who make up the organization and bring it success. I would say, wellness, or if we go to productivity, productivity is only as good as the health and fitness of the human resources. So look after them with all of the guidance and the technologies that are out there, and keep measuring it. Keep measuring it every month, and keep talking about it on the organization's social intranets, etc.
Great, thanks, Ben. Atma, over to you now.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Trilok. I think Ben has made a very wonderful point that these times are really stressful, and let's not be very hard on ourselves that hey, I need to perform better. I need to do these things, and I need to take up things. Let's be a bit slow for next 6 to 8 months. It's perfectly all right. Let's be together. Let's reach out to people. In fact, I called today morning one of my colleague. We spoke like after 4 years, and I ended up giving her a lead because she was looking out for a job. Reach out to people. Reach out to your ex-colleagues. Reach out to your friends. Reach out to family. Talk more often. Give them calls, and this too shall pass.
Great, very well put, Atma. Finally, Priyambi, your points.
Sure, absolutely. I think one takeaway from me from this panel is about measuring and the two-way communication. That's something that while we know it needs to be out there, written, not to be forgotten, these are things, right? The second bit that is a takeaway as a learning that I have from the journey is social well-being. We can't ignore it. We can't ignore it. And I haven't said this here on this panel, but yes, from what I used to think of 3 dimensions, we have 4 dimensions for you. That's how we should go about it. There are 4 dimensions that we need to take care for you. That's what, if you can just look at it and not miss out social, it would really pay in the long term. I think after these periods are over, we'll actually see a lot more camaraderie, lot more strength within the organization that we've ever seen before.
Perfect. Thank you. Perfect. Great. I think all 3 of you
Sorry, we're over time by almost 5 minutes.
Yes. So yeah, we are over time. So, but anyway, we'll come to the end of the conversation. Thank you, the 3 of you, for participating in this panel discussion. And it was lovely talking to every one of you. So attendees, you can just drop in an email to the email address from which you received the invite if you have any questions for any one of us, and we'll take it up offline. Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And it was nice talking to each one of you. Signing off. Stay safe.
Thank you, Trilok. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.